Yeah, I heard the story of Jeffrey Manchester. I thought it was an intriguing idea for a movie. I think movies are only 127 years old, and I felt like movies can take you to places that are like very special, and they can amaze you. They can do so many things. And I thought here was this guy's story that robbed 45 McDonald's, lived in a toy store, was going to church, fell in love. It was about family. I was like, wow, this seems like a movie. This seems like the kind of movie that I would love to watch, like when I was a kid growing up. One of the movies that like I fell in love with. But Jeff is in a maximum security prison, and you can't call him. He can only call you. So I found out a way to get him my number, and he started one day. I got a phone call from.
Couldn't visit him.
I have visited him, yes, but that takes like 6 months. But I talked to him like 4 times a week for about 4 years. And he calls me Dr. Derek. He says that whenever he talks to me, he's going to lay down now and I'm going to shrink his head. And I just listen and I ask him questions about his life, about his choices. And then there was a time, a couple of years into talking to him, where I realized I needed to talk to the other people in his life. And I started talking to anyone who would talk to me, his mother, his brother, the police that arrested him, his girlfriend, the pastor of the church where he was going, the dentist whose dentist office he blew up, anyone that would talk to me. There was a lot of people that didn't want to have anything to do with it. But all the people that did, they validated Jeff's crazy stories. He is kind of a tall tale teller, but those tall tales were all true.
Has he seen the film?
No, he has not seen the film because he doesn't have the internet.
Right. I didn't know if you were able to.
No. Look, Jeff, when I visited him, I said, what do you miss most about being on the outside? And he says, a lot of people would say the touch of a woman. And he was like, and I do miss that. He was like, but what I miss more than that is an orange. I was like, what do you mean an orange? He was like, I haven't had an orange in 20 years. They don't allow oranges in prison. So if they don't allow oranges, they're not going to allow a movie screening. I think they were making wine or some kind of booze. One of the prisoners made some kind of spirit out of it. But I did.
Orange wine?
But Jeff did see clips from the trailer on the nightly news. And he did call me and he said, I have a question I saw an image of Channing in a pair of Heelys in like his underwear with a pool floaty around his waist and like a teddy bear on his neck and a pair of sunglasses on. He was like, where'd you get that idea? And I said, well, we built a Toys R Us and I was setting up a shot and Channing just came around the corner and he looked like that. So we filmed him. And he said, I'm really glad to hear that. He was like, because if you live in a Toys R Us for 6 months, it has a way of bringing out your inner child. And I'm really happy to hear that Channing got to experience that.
Yeah, you can't put me in a toy store anywhere really, but especially for 6 months without having me do some weird stuff with all the toys. I did not meet him. We put in an application and then we just didn't hear back. They don't really care if you're from the movies or not. They just don't care at all. And I got approval like after we had already started shooting and our schedule was just slammed. Yeah, I know. I talked to Derek. To Jeff. Like probably at least over 100 times. I talked to him for like 2 months. He calls you again. It was every day. And sometimes it would be for 15 minutes. Sometimes he has another 15 minutes after that. And so you can get 30 out of it. And I really let him kind of like guide it. I didn't try to grill him for like little things, when he would get on a section of something that I would find that might be helpful or whatever, I would kind of start to, whittle away there. But he really took care of me on these conversations. Like one, I think he's really good at understanding how to manage the 15 minutes because he knows like if you get off on a tangent that isn't like something that's important, like he'll kind of like bring you back. But he just is the most warm, like charismatic, like he cares about you. He'll know something about you or has heard something, or he was fascinated with movies. Like we spent multiple phone calls just talking about movies. I think he's seen Jump Street.
Can I say when I told him that I was casting Channing as him, he was like, you should have cast someone uglier. And then he said a couple months later, he said, I talked to Channing. He was like, we really have a lot in common. We both have really high motors. We both play defensive end, and we're both incredibly good looking.
That is exactly what he said. I know. I just can't say. I mean, obviously he's done wrong things, and that's one of the first things he'll say to you. He's like, look, I'm where I'm supposed to be. I understand that. My only problem was with how much time they gave me. Like, I didn't feel like that was fair. And if they weren't going to give me a second chance, I was going to give myself one. And that's why he chose to do what he did and break out. And I was like, that makes sense. I was like, I don't know. I do know you're a bit of a, tall tailer, or I don't want to say con man, because I don't really know if that connotation is how I see him or feel of him yet. And but I always took everything with a grain of salt, except for that. I felt the same way. I was like, 45 years for being caught for one McDonald's you don't get that for capital murder or rape or things like that. And I just was like, that does feel like a little strong.
Yeah.
And if they're just shutting the door and locking you away, like, what else do you have to choose from? And I might have done the same thing.
Did you meet Lee?
I met Lee. She came to set one day. I learned more about her from Derek. He had talked to Lee, and what I knew is that she fell madly in love with Jeffrey, and they had a wonderful real time together. And I did a North Carolina accent, but she, there wasn't a bunch of footage, or she's not a known person, so it was a little different for me than it was for Chan.
Every movie is a miracle to make, and it's hard, and it's supposed to be hard. I feel like obstacles and resistance is necessary. What do they say? Pressure makes diamonds. I think you need to embrace that and push through. This was the hardest movie I've ever made. Maybe that's a sign of the business. I don't know. But it's hard, and it's supposed to be hard. You have to be prepared to fight.
Yeah.
To fight. There's a lot of battles to make a movie.
I think it's one of the only art forms. I mean, maybe there's more, but it's the only one I can think of that you can't do alone. You cannot make a movie by yourself. It takes an absolute army of money and people and just everyone working together, but guided by one person. And then someone has to find that money or give us that money and make the choice to make our story. And it's confused. I did an article, or I said it in an article recently, that I think that we're incentivized right now on a level to make maybe not the highest quality of movies, like some actors, I think, because the studio, I'll have a great script that's really, really good, that's better than another script that is sort of like maybe not as good, but they'll pay me more for they want to make the programmer, they want to make the movie that isn't as good as the one that's really, 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 really good and fresh and special. And I go, okay, well, I mean, what are we supposed to do? So I'm not supposed to go and do what's the choice here? And like, it's just gotten kind of confusing, I think. But I think disruption is always good on some level. I really believe that. I think when things get shaken up and a new entity comes in, it can only grow from, I think, that.
I was just thinking about, no one gets into this business or doing a film because we're going to have fun. It's not necessarily that. It's about these crazy artists, and you described us as an Isle of Misfits that you hired for this, which I love.
Isle of Misfit Toys.
Yeah. And honestly, it's just this movie so much about really good human beings messing up. And it's really such a beautiful, soulful, graceful story. And I feel like this is a movie that everyone can truly get something and appreciate.